eyes opened a couple of days ago. There was a child an African-American child who didn't have her hair quite, together, and her hairdresser wasn't going to be available for like 2 days. And the mother had determined, well, she wasn't going to take her to this particular gathering because her hair wasn't quite right. I'm like, wait a minute, what does that mean? And all of a sudden it hit me. The reality of the problem in the African-American community, especially in the inner cities, how we're kind of jacked up. What's up with that? And I began thinking about it. As you go through, you see the perms, you see the hair, the glued, or the hair weaves. And I began to think about that. Well, what does all that mean if the hair isn't right, or if the hair doesn't look quite right? What does that mean? See, I came up in the 70s, with the afros, and the girls had like beautiful afros, beautiful afro puffs. Nothing more beautiful to me than black women with afros. It was so, and the whole idea was that it was natural. And the idea, you see, when we talk about afros, even the afros from the 70s, and we say, well, that attributes back to Africa and the way people wore their hair. I don't know if that's true. Because however hair was worn in Africa, whether it was cut or not, the fact is it wasn't about the afro. Yeah, it was just the hair. But here we focused on the hair and called it an afro and said this sort of gave us our identity, that we don't have to have our hair straightened. We don't have to look like somebody else to be well, that we recognize and have a pride in the way that God made us. Sort of in the sense of that story with the potter. You can't, why would you question the potter? Why have you made me this way? Yet it seems like African Americans too often in our communities, we're so often trying to change ourselves, change the way that God made us. And so as minimal or as trivial as that might seem, the afro, to me, it revealed a whole lot. It revealed to me hundreds and hundreds of years of conditioning, to where it's hard to embrace that which is not white-like as being okay. And to me then, as I was beginning to think on it deeply, I remember when this I'm black and I'm proud, and all this affirmation that African Americans had for themselves began to even evolve and change communities. And so we were proud wearing our afros, our big ones, our short ones, our tapered ones, however we wore them. The girls with the afro puffs, or the one on top with the big old afros, just embracing the naturalness. Well, that's what they called it, the naturalness of who you are. You are okay, how you are. And I believe that we've lost. We don't even like ourselves. There is a self-hatred, in a sense, in the black community, and it's a subconscious thing. Because we've been programmed to believe that the lighter you are, the better you are. The closer you are to white, the better you are. The straighter your hair, the better you are. They had that study some years ago when you had little black children and they were given the choice to play with black dolls or white dolls, and they chose the white doll overwhelmingly, because there's been like a subconscious, I don't want to say brainwashing, but just conditioning that began to make black people believe that they weren't quite up to where everyone else was. And if you really think about it, it's quite natural. I mean, you take the story of the elephant, the big old giant elephant at the circus that's just standing there and won't run away, and you wonder why it won't run away. And it won't run away because when they're baby elephants, when they're calves, when they're newly born, they tie them to a big old stake. And they can't get away. They can't move. And they grow up being tied to that stake. They can't move. And so when they become full grown, in their minds they've already been convinced that they can't move. So you don't even have to have him tied to the stake anywhere. He's not going anywhere because he's been convinced. He's been programmed. He's been conditioned to believe that he can't move, and he's just there. What I'm suggesting today, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of years of being second-class citizens, of being told you this, and beginning to buy into it, even beginning to manifest the attributes to prove those stereotypes correct. You just having sex, having babies, don't get married. And what do? We're having sex, we're having babies, we're not getting married, not getting married. I can't possibly be like everybody else. I can't possibly be well. What I'm suggesting today is because it is a low self-image, and what I believe the problem, even in the early 70s, when the Afro and the black consciousness of okay, I'm okay the way God made me and all, is that we stop there with those outward things. Okay, well, I got an Afro, or this or whatever, but we never went any further than that to begin. Now let's begin to deal with that inner person. Listen to that voice. Begin to get our mind straight. Begin to make ourselves well. We just dealt with this one particular issue, and a lot of it was verbal. We convinced ourselves verbally to believe that we were okay with who we are, but we really weren't. And so I'm suggesting today the whole Afro, and the whole idea of Afro is, I guess I'm using that word now to symbolize the wellness that you are as you are created. Okay, so that covers the whole gamut of things. However you look. Now I'm not saying not being in good health, being overweight or being, or being unkempt or, I'm not saying that, because those are manifestations of issues as well. But what I'm seeing is that Afro in itself is saying my hair doesn't have to be straightened for me to look good. That in my hair in its natural state is beautiful. And we need to really begin to believe that, but not just stop there. And at the same time, begin meditating, begin introspection. I'm telling you, I see folks, this manifests, this negative self-image manifests. You're sometimes in the inner city, and this is what we're talking about today. We're talking to us today. I know we're talking to other folks, but try to feel where I'm coming from. And I'm driving, or I'm walking down the street, and I'm seeing a car stop, and a McDonald's bag is thrown out the window, and they drive off, or a cup is thrown out the window and they drive off. Now, what's up with that? It's the same idea of not respecting or not thinking much even of the neighborhood that you live in. I was talking to a buddy of mine, telling him about it. He said, yeah, he was in this one neighborhood, and there was a man in the neighborhood. His job was to clean up the neighborhood. So he's in there cleaning up, the trash, and right behind him are some young people throwing stuff down right behind him. And he's asking them, hey, you guys, can you not throw trash down? They told him to shut up. That's your job, now pick it up. We have no pride. We have no, and pride, I don't mean pride or God hates pride in the sense that you think you're all that, but I'm saying appreciating what God made you to be. Appreciating what God has even placed you in the midst of, the environment, the world that God has given you. We have no pride. So I'm suggesting today, for African Americans, we need to get back to the Afro. In the sense that whatever is natural, we need to stop pressing our hair. We need to stop gluing hair in. We need to stop weaving hair into our heads. We need to stop thinking that for ourselves to be beautiful, we have to have hair that is unlike what we've been born with. We need to take what we've been born with and groom it the way that it's supposed to be groomed. Instead of trying to rid ourselves of that, instead of complaining to God, why have you made me thus? Come on now. You see what I'm saying? This is an issue of pride, of an individual, not pride in the negative sense, but just recognizing that you're okay how God made you. And this whole thing about straightening your hair, this whole thing about gluing hair in or weaving hair in, grow your own hair as it grows. Big Afro, short Afro, Afro puffs, however you want to do it. It's beautiful. I don't know where we came to the point of around the 70s, late 70s, 80s, or whatever, or maybe mid 80s, where we stopped thinking that the natural hair was beautiful. That was a lie. It was a lie from the principalities and powers to get you to begin to challenge the potter. Why have you made me thus? Embrace the way you've been made. From this program on, I'm growing an Afro. And I'm hoping that it catches on. We need to. This, to me, is like a foundation step of wellness. I am okay the way God made me. That's the first step. And then we'll continue with the meditation and the inner healing.